Good morning, I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we are the Castro.
We bring you the news.
And the views that make you think.
Sometimes we agree.
Sometimes we don't.
This is News and Views.
And here are today's headlines.
Senator Amy Marcos is set to resume today her committee's probe on former President Duterte's arrest. But cabinet members already declined to attend, claiming that they had already provided all the necessary information.
The palace reminds the public to remain calm amid escalating tension between China and Taiwan. This is after AFP Chief of Staff Romy Bronner Jr. told the military to prepare for a possible invasion of Taiwan.
The U.S. approves the sale of more F-16 fighter jets to the Philippines as Washington tightens key Asian alliances.
And the Philippine Basketball Association, or PBA, added 10 more names to its list of greatest players.
First in the news, the UNICEF says children across Myanmar are at risk of dying due to insufficient aid following the magnitude 7.7 earthquake last week. Here's the report.
Rescue operations continue in Myanmar, where teams are working around the clock to search for survivors of the magnitude 7.7 earthquake. The death toll has now exceeded 2,800, with 4,639 people injured and 373 still missing. The United Nations is urging the global community to ramp up assistance, as UNICEF warns that children across Myanmar are at risk of dying due to insufficient aid. Drinking water, hygiene, food, shelter, and medicine remain the most urgent needs following extensive damage to buildings, roads, and bridges.
If we're not able to reach these children, we don't have the support. Yes, there's a risk of children dying because we know that it's very likely that disease will proliferate. There will be disease in the earthquake-affected areas if we're not able to get enough clean water, enough medical supplies in there. There's a risk of malnutrition increasing. Chronic and severe acute malnutrition among children can be very dangerous.
Myanmar's ongoing civil war has complicated efforts to reach the injured and displaced. However, the country's junta announced a temporary ceasefire on Wednesday to support rehabilitation efforts. The ceasefire will be in effect from April 2 to April 22. Meanwhile, the Department of Foreign Affairs said around 100 Filipinos in Mandalay will be transferred to Yangon this week as buildings remain unsafe. The Philippine Embassy in Myanmar is coordinating buses for their relocation. 4 Filipinos are still missing following the earthquake.
Meanwhile, in other news, the Armed Forces of the Philippines continues to monitor the situation in Taiwan amid the possible invasion of China. Here's the report.
China conducted military drills around Taiwan on Wednesday. Almost 100 aerial and naval assets of Beijing took part in live-fire rocket strikes. According to Taiwan Defense Ministry, they have detected 76 Chinese aircraft and 50 Navy ships. It is uncertain until when Beijing will carry out drills in the area. With this, Taipei has ramped up security to prevent this from escalating to invasion. The Taiwan Presidential Office earlier called Beijing a troublemaker. Although there are 250,000 Filipinos in Taiwan, Malacanang said there's nothing to worry about.
Stay put. Basta po, tandaan po nila, ang gobyerno po ay handang tumulong sa anumang oras para sa kanila.
The armed forces, for its part, said they are closely monitoring the situation.
If something happens to Taiwan, inevitably, we will be involved. There are 250,000 OFWs working in Taiwan, and we will have to rescue them. And it will be the task of Northern Luzon Command to be at the front line of that operation.
The Northern Luzon Command was earlier instructed to prepare for any eventuality.
I would like to assert the commitment of the Commandant, the Philippine Coast Guard, that whatever the national government would require of the Philippine Coast Guard will be there to support, particularly the mobilization of vessels.
The Philippine Coast Guard also confirms that it has deployed an aircraft to Palawan after spotting a Chinese research vessel in its waters.
As of 8 a.m. this morning, the Philippine Coast Guard monitored the Chinese research vessel Songhang at a distance of approximately 58 nautical miles east of Aborlan, Palawan.
Maritime security expert Ray Powell was the first to detect suspicious movements from the vessel, believed to be gathering data and information. Not only was a Chinese research vessel spotted within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone, but it also entered its archipelagic waters. The Philippine Coast Guard reports that they are actively driving the vessel away.
We're challenging them that they are not authorized to carry out marine scientific research and that they are advised to leave the area if they're doing so.
So, walang response, sir, yung vessel?
As of this time, they're not responding to the response to Philippines.
Last February, another Chinese research vessel was also spotted navigating near Palawan and Occidental Mindoro.
Now let's get all these insights on the ongoing development. We have with us Attorney Michael Yusinko of the Ateneo Policy Center joining us live via Zoom. Attorney, good morning. Thank you for joining us again.
Good morning, Angelo, and good morning, Angela, and good morning to everyone listening and watching the program.
All right, Attorney, before we talk about yung statement ni General Bronner and yung AFP stance, now, I'd like to ask about China. Do you think this is just merely posturing or are they really planning something?
You know, it's hard to tell, Angelo. That's the best answer that I can give. No? We've seen things escalate and then de-escalate and then escalate again. So it's hard to tell what China intends to do. No? Certainly, it has an ongoing intimidation campaign with regards to Taiwan. So it's good that General Bronner urged our soldiers to be ready, always ready, because at least I think that's the best that we can do, no? To be ready for any contingency. But as to predict China's next move, I don't think we can do that at all.
But do you think it's in their best interest given their economic standing and given that their military might be massive, but we all know it's an aging army?
So there are a lot of factors that could go against any aggressive moves. No? One is their economic condition now. But one can also argue that it's precisely the economic condition that will drive them to be more aggressive. So, all in all, really, Angelo, it will be difficult to really establish a firm opinion on whether they will do it or not, you know, or to justify going to war with Taiwan or invading Taiwan. No? But certainly, there are conditions now. One of them is their economic condition that can potentially make that decision easier for their leaders, no? Because it's going to, make it easier for them to make such a decision.
Right. Michael, given our current capabilities, how feasible it is for the country to prepare for the possible invasion of China to Taiwan?
I don't think we stand a chance, no, if we get involved in a kinetic war with China, no, if we're only thinking about doing it ourselves, right? But obviously we have allies that we can rely on. But I think that's really beside the point now, no. If we're going to talk about an inevitable or a forthcoming war that is within our region, I think the better conversation to have now is how do we really boost our defense capability? Specifically, how do we really, establish a self-reliant defense posture? Because this is the time to really increase or heat up or intensify our discussion about this.
That's right.
As war is in the background. Or a looming war is in the background.
Attorney, well, we are about in the tail end of purchasing 20 F-16 fighter jets. While we all know it's a capable fighter jet, it's an aging one. We're also set to acquire Nemesis and Typhoon missile systems. And this coincided with, of course, yung statement ni General Bronner. So a lot of people are thinking, does he know something in advance? And tama ba ang direksyon na ginagawa natin in terms of beefing up our defense capabilities?
Well, kung sa tama talaga, no? Just imagine, just think of it this way, Angelo and Angela, that we are a maritime nation. No? We are surrounded by seas that we need to defend, no?
Yes.
Not just the West, but the East. So we have to be a maritime powerhouse. That's the bottom line here, no? We have to be a maritime powerhouse to defend what is rightfully ours for this generation and for the generation to come. No, so I think what we need to highlight is the fact that we as a people, specifically as taxpayers, we have to bear the burden of really boosting our national defense capability.
Yes.
Yun yung hindi yun natin masyado na pag-uusapan because the conversation always revolves around this ironclad commitment by the United States to come to our aid, no? And unfortunately, our political leaders, particularly those in Congress, are hesitant to discuss this matter because it's going to hit them hard, no? When come election time. But really, at the end of the day, it is us, people, citizens, and taxpayers in particular, who will be burdened by this massive expenditure, which we must do, no?
Yes.
Otherwise, we will always be vulnerable to external threats.
Yeah. Either way naman, kung may conflict o wala, kailangan ng AFP modernization eh. Because of, di ba, meron naman silang programa doon. But Michael, no, ang tanong ko dito, how might the Philippines balance its economic ties with China while, alam mo, while maintaining its regional presence and, you know, stability with East Asia? We all know naman that China is our economic trade. Isa yan sa una natin, na pinaka-top economic trade natin, pang-walo ang Taiwan. So, paano yun with what's going to happen yung possible invasion nga na pinag-uusapan?
That's a good question, Angela. And I think for me, at the very basic, we have to respect the one China policy that we are obligated to respect. No? Hindi tayo pwedeng lumabag doon sa one China policy that our government has entered into in 1975. No? So, at the very least, at the very basic, no, yung gobyerno natin, and even some of our talking heads must respect the one China policy. No? So, we cannot go beyond that. Otherwise, we might tip the balance off, as you say, no, na baka sabihin masyado tayong pumapabor doon sa kabilang panig, or we are reneging on an obligation that we have actually stood by for many decades. No? So, to answer your question, at the very basic, we should respect, or we should adhere to, in terms of our actions and our words, the one China policy that we are obligated to implement.
Yes, Attorney, a lot of us are so sensitive in regards to how we deal with China na baka masaktan daw feelings nila and all. And yet we see that South Korea's model was to agitate China as much as they could, but yet they earned the respect of China, even despite of being them well, not really an opponent, but an agitator, being one of the greatest allies of the U.S. in this region. So how could we strike this balance then without any leverage whatsoever?
That's a fair point, Angelo, and I think that also has to be recognized. No, na for several years we have adopted the appeasement policy, no,
Yes.
under the Duterte administration, and that has actually taken us back from the one China policy. No? Kasi under the one China policy, we must also assert China's respecting our territorial integrity, no? Kasi ang misconception, yung one China policy is only us respecting China's territorial integrity. No.
Yeah.
There is a reciprocal obligation on Beijing to respect our territorial integrity.
Which they don't.
So, which they're not doing.
Yes.
No? So there's also that side of it that every time that they invade our territory, or they sort of intervene in our domestic politics, then it's also incumbent upon us to fight back, to call it out, to fight back. No? So the appeasement policy that was employed by the previous administration, which thankfully is gone now, must not be the norm again. I should say. So we must call out China's invasion of both our politics and our territory, and we must employ retaliatory tactics, of course, within the bounds of international law and within the bounds of international relations.
Yun nga, Michael, kasi diba sinasabi nila, essentially, ASEAN countries are expected to be neutral in this kind of situation. Kaya lang kasi, iniisip din natin yung alliance natin with the US. So how does this alliance, diba, how does this align with the Philippines' commitments under its mutual defense treaty with the US?
Well, the alignment that you're asking for, Angela, really is mahirap i-spell out, no? Because it's really bore out by specific action and specific declarations, no? So every time our government says or relies on the United States, specifically that ironclad commitment, I don't think that's going against the interests of China, or that's insulting China, you know. China can feel otherwise, but that's on them, no? That's their fault. It's not our fault that they feel insulted every time we and the United States stand together on any matter, right? So I think we cannot be overly sensitive, no, to the fact that every time that we are together with Western countries or the United States, that we are always wary of how Beijing would react. I don't think that's a correct position to take. For as long as, again, I go back, we stand by the one China policy. I think that's the linchpin here, no? Na we cannot, for as long as we do not violate that, then we are not violating any agreement with Beijing.
Yeah.
Beyond that, we are free to do whatever we want to do. If we want to hold exercises, military exercises with any country that we deem appropriate, then bahala na sila kung anong reaction nila, hindi ba?
Yeah.
As long as it's for our own national interest.
Yeah, and attorney, the word is mutual. No, it's a mutual defense treaty. So, ang mga tao nagsasabing nagpapagamit tayo, they have to understand the context of the word mutual. That we're benefiting from discounted sales for military equipment and having a big brother on our side. While the U.S., people have to understand mayroon tayong geographical location that is very important in Asia that they need. But aside from that, ano pa ang pakinabang ng U.S. sa atin by having that word mutual sa defense treaty?
Well, specifically, Angelo, the basis that we've allowed them to use. No? So I think if you're talking about benefit, I think that's the benefit that is the most valuable to them. The bases in the north that our government has allowed them to use, permitted them to use, I think that's the benefit that is really most valuable to them right now. I don't think they expect us to fight with them in any war, right? I don't think that is in their strategy or plans. So benefits, if you want to talk about benefits, I think that it would be the basis, the EDCA basis that our government has allowed them to use.
Yun nga, since nagkaroon ng usapin nito, parang nagkaroon ng ibang tension at saka alarm, sinasabi nga natin. Pero is there a possibility na sa gitna ng possible conflict nga sa Taiwan and China ay maging peacekeeper naman, or peacekeeper ang Philippines in the negotiations?
That's certainly possible, no? Kaya ang sinasabi natin, when it comes to the One China policy, no, meron tayong commitment not to interfere in whatever happens between Beijing and China and Taiwan. But we are also obligated under international law or under international humanitarian law
Yeah.
to do whatever that is required of us in case that conflict happens. No? So, kung halimbawa na pagdesisyonan ng United Nations that peacekeepers need to be sent and then assigns us, then we are duty-bound to comply. No? But ang ayaw natin, ang hindi natin pwedeng gawin is to proactively interfere or make unilateral determinations as to the status of Taiwan or as to how China deals with its conflict with Taiwan. No? Doon tayo, under the One China policy, we are obligated to stay outside. No? But once that conflict happens and the international community now makes its own determinations, then under that umbrella, under that brand, then we have to do whatever is required of us.
Yeah, I'd like to ask about it kasi we have the MDT and we also have the One China policy stance and agreement that we have with China. Let's say if hypothetically something breaks out between China and Taiwan and the U.S. asks us on some level to participate, not directly in a war or attacking, but probably positioning missile systems sa north or take off point for the U.S. Army or allowing their ships. And then China asks us not to interfere and honor the MDT because we also have an agreement in place, di ba? So ano ang mangyayari when you have two countries that are invoking partnerships at the same time? What do we do then?
That's a very, very good question, Angelo, and sadly, I may not have the correct answer to that. No? But
Kailangan ba natin mamili? Kailangan ba natin mamili, attorney?
The answer that I can proffer now is when that time comes, no, one guiding principle that must be used is that section in our constitution that says we must have an independent foreign policy, meaning our primary consideration should always be the national interest. What would be good for our country? Whether that would be helping the United States or not helping the United States, that has to be studied thoroughly. That has to be deliberated thoroughly by our leaders, by national security officials, and our political leaders. But it's good that you asked now so that we can start thinking about it, right?
Yeah.
But offhand, obviously, I won't be able to give you a sufficient answer. But the only answer that I can give you now is that when that time comes, all of us, including our political leaders, must be very conscious of that requirement or demand by the Constitution that we must have an independent foreign policy, which means that whatever foreign policy decision that must be made, it has to be for the best interest of the nation, for the best interest of the Filipinos.
Pero having said that, Michael, do you think na tama ba yung sinabi ni AFP Chief Bronner na mag-warning ng ganito o dapat hindi na lang?
That's also a good question, Angela. No? But my answer to that is we have to take it in context. No? So General Bronner was talking to our soldiers. So in that context, there was nothing inappropriate that he said. No? He was just really ordering our soldiers to be ready for any contingency. There's nothing wrong with that. But obviously, the other side of that is that he made those statements in public, which necessarily means it will be heard not just by our soldiers but also by other people, and that has ramifications as well. No? So that has to be considered as well. Na merong epekto yan, lalong-lalo na dun sa mga gustong guluhin yung lipunan natin. They can use that against the government. But I think the Marcos administration has explained it quite well, no? That this is really about just our soldiers being ready for any contingency, and that there's really nothing to worry about as far as that possibility coming to fruition is concerned.
Parang right venue, right message, wrong venue lang.
Yes. Hindi, sana sinabi na lang niya closed doors, no? Para talagang sa mga sundalo lang ang mga makakarinig.
Alright. Maraming salamat sa iyong oras, Attorney Michael Yusinko of the Ateneo Policy Center. Thank you so much for your time.
Maraming salamat din.
Now, the United States has approved the potential sale of 20 F-16 fighter jets and related military equipment to the Philippines. The U.S. Defense Security Cooperation Agency said the deal is worth $5.58 billion. It aims to enhance the Philippine Air Force's maritime surveillance, air defense, and interoperability with U.S. forces. The American Congress has also been notified of the possible sale. Meanwhile, the Department of National Defense said it has yet to receive an official notice regarding the sale.
Yung F-16 na yan yung sa Top Gun.
Yung pala yun.
Yung F-5, yung isa sinasabi niyo, hindi yung Top Gun. Ito yung Top Gun. And if you remember, pinortray nila to sa movie as a ancient artifact. Parang luma
na.
Luma
Tapos
na.
mabili natin.
Oo. And Tom Cruise owns a trainer version of that as his toy.
Alright,
Ganda
sige.
ang toy niya.
We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News.
Malacanang maintains that cabinet officials have adequately addressed questions raised in the Senate probe into the arrest of former President Rodrigo Duterte. Palace Press Officer Undersecretary Angelo Castro said that given Senator Amy Marcos's preliminary findings, the officials had provided the necessary facts and data. However, Senator Marcos argued that several questions remain unanswered. She pointed out that while President Bongbong Marcos allowed the investigation, Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin's letter invoking Executive Order 464 raised concerns about transparency. EO 464 grants executive privilege, protecting communications between the President and cabinet officials from public disclosure.
Sa tingin po namin ay sapat na po considering the fact na nagkaroon na rin po siya ng kanyang preliminary findings. So, yun po at hindi po natin masasabi na hindi naman po tinugunan ang mga katanungan kung ito po ay in aid of legislation.
Now, Senator Amy Marcos pushes through with a second hearing on the arrest of former President Rodrigo Duterte. For the latest, we have mobile journalist Merimon Reyes joining us on the Senate. No, at the Senate, we have Merimon. Merimon, how's the situation over there?
Magandang umaga sa inyo. So far, kasi simula nga lang ng pagdinig ng Senate Foreign Committee kung saan bukod doon sa, ina-expect ni Senator Amy na i-reconsider ng kabinete yung pag-attend sa pagdinig na ito. So far, 3 o 4 lang yung umattend. At kung babanggitin natin mga pangalan, ang nandirito ay mula sa Securities and Exchange Commission na sila Attorney R.J. Bernal at saka si Attorney Ferdino Santiago. Si Senator Bato de la Rosa nandirito rin, nabanggit din kanina ni Senadora Amy na magbibigay rin ng opening statement si Senator Bongo. Pero hindi natin siya nakita dito. Personally, sumukhang virtual din siya tulad nung unang pagdinig. And so far, mula sa PNP, mula sa CIDG, sa CAAP, sa Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines, DOJ, even si DILG Secretary John Vic Remulla, Secretary Crispin Remulla, wala rin sila ngayong araw. Ang nung ni-roll call kanina yung mga resource persons, ang nasabi, itong majority ng mga resource persons ay nag-confirm pero they send their regrets na hindi nga raw sila makakapunta ngayong araw. Pero since meron namang resource person na dito, including si Attorney Alexis Medina na nung first na hearing ay binigyan niya rin ng linaw yung naging legalities and yung procedure nung pagiging yung pag-aresto kay dati Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte, mukhang ipagpapatuloy ang pagdinig ngayong araw.
Meron yung mga una na banggit mo, sino yun? SEC ba yun? Sa SEC?
Yes, sila lang nga nandito plus Attorney Alexis Medina. Mula kanila General Marbil, kanila General Torre, DOJ, wala. Walang nakatao dito, wala ring representation.
Ano yung role ng SEC, Merimon, in all of this?
Yun din yung aantabayanan natin ngayong araw kasi since sila lang yung mga naging resource persons dito, nasabi ni Senadora Amy, marami na parang mga katanungan ng taong bayan na nais masagot. So later on, kapag nag-ongoing na ito, kasi nag-roll call pa lang kanina, nag-opening statement pa lang si Senator Amy, makikita na natin yung next questions na tutugunan daw nitong pagdinig.
Oo, kasi Merrimon, ang sabi ni Senator Amy, supposedly the second hearing will focus on finding fault. In the first is to determine the legality, in pangalawa, finding fault or sino daw may kasalanan nitong lahat. May naririnig ka ba kung ganun nga ang direksyon nitong second hearing?
Kanina sa sinabi ni Senadora Amy, yung purpose nga nitong pagdinig ay para matignan yung legalities, kung meron bang nalabag na batas o meron bang mga karapatan ni dating Pangulong Duterte na nalabag din o hindi naprotektahan sa ginawang pagkakaaresto. At the same time, itong ginagawang pagdinig ay para nga makita kung anong legislation efforts or ang kailangang ipatupad para raw sa mas magandang coordination ng Philippine government sa international tribunals and even sa law enforcement agencies. Pero since kasi simula pa lang, titignan natin kung ano nga ba yung magiging sentimiento, lalo-lalo na ni Senator Bato de la Rosa na ngayon ay personal na dumating dito sa pagdinig tungkol nga sa pagkakaaresto sa dating Pangulo.
But speaking of legalities, Merrimon, would you know kung naimbitahan ba at hindi lang naka-attend ngayon yung ibang mga legal luminaries na sinasabi nila na maaaring makatulong dito sa investigasyon na nabanggit din ni Yusek Castro yesterday, like sila retired Justice Antonio Carpio, Attorney Butuyan. Would you know that?
Yung ilan pa lang kasi sa mga narinig natin ay more on mga gabinete, yung mga executive officials na inaasahan talaga na pupunta. At yun nga ikinalungkot ni Senator Amy na sinasabi ng palasyo ay open daw sila na makipag-cooperate. Pero since na dun sa sulat ni Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin na hindi na nga pupunta ang mga gabinete, nag-send din ng letter in return itong si Senadora na sana i-reconsider yung kanilang pagdating dito. Pero since wala dito yung mga major resource persons, iikot yung pagdinig sa kung sino na lamang ang nandito.
Alright, sige. Iwanan ka na namin dyan at silipin na natin yung nangyayari dyan ngayon sa hearing. Thank you so much, mobile journalist Merrimon Reyes.
Right, we'll now throw you over to the ongoing hearing on the Committee on Foreign Affairs headed by Senator Amy Marcos.
Tuloy na nilalabag yung ating konstitusyon at ang ating mga batas. Hindi po maganda ito, Madam Chair. Kaya nag-exist yung Senado, in particular, yung buong Kongreso, para meron tayong checks and balances. Hindi po pwede yung executive branch of government hahayaan na lang natin na gagawa sila ng mga hakbang na lapag sa ating konstitusyon. So we are here to check them. So kung hindi sila magpapacheck, isnab sila ng isnab sa atin, then magkakaroon tayo ng constitutional crisis nito, Madam Chair.
Sang-ayon po ako sa inyo at talagang hindi tama itong pangkalahatang sinasabi. Lahat na lang executive privilege, lahat na lang sub judice. Alam naman natin, hindi naman tayo lihis at alam naman natin na napaklaro ng Neri versus Senate, yung Ermita case, kaliwaliwanag na kinakailangan na talagang malapit sa Pangulo, ang impormasyon hindi makukuha sa iba, hindi naman ito magiging panganib para sa lipunan, kaya't paano po ito naging executive privilege, alam na po natin yan at hindi naman tayo nakikialam dun sa bagay-bagay na sinaloob ng mga kaso at asunto sa Korte Suprema. Kaya ang palagay ko, dadami po ang sampina na hihilingin natin sa ating Senate President, marami na po kasi kung dadalawa lang yung na-absent dati, pagkarami-raming absent, nakikita natin tayo-tayo lang na narito. Kaya nalulungkot po kami. At ngayon tawagan naman natin si Senator Bongo.
Magandang umaga po, Madam Chair, Senator Bato de la Rosa, and to the resource persons present in this meeting. Parang wala namang resource persons present dyan. Parang wala akong nakikita.
Si Attorney Medina lang po, yung dating resource natin, at narito rin yung dalawang abogado ng SEC. Yun lang po.
Napakalungkot naman po. Malungkot yung Pilipino, malungkot rin yung hearing natin. Sa nakaraang pagdinig ng committee ito, marami tayong naisiwalat na maaring pagkakamali o paglabag sa batas, due process at karapatang pantao na isinagawang pag-aresto kay dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. The preliminary report of the chairperson underscored a crucial point. The Philippine government was under no legal obligation to arrest the former president and surrender him to an international court. It was revealed that what was received was merely a diffusion notice which was unverified and unapproved by the International Criminal Police Organization, Interpol Secretariat. The government has repeatedly stated that the International Criminal Court has no jurisdiction in our country. Parating paulit-ulit yan. At hanggang ngayon, yan naman po pinag-usapan na wala pong jurisdiction. Kung walang jurisdiction ng ICC, bakit pinayagang pumasok ang Interpol? Kung hindi kinikilala ng gobyerno ang ICC, bakit nila binigyan ng pansin ng arrest warrant mula sa ICC? At it was very fast. Napakabilis po ng pangyayari. I'm sure kindly check nyo rin po sana. Baka maraming may mga red notice dyan na hindi naman minadali, hindi naman hinanap. Pero ito, ang bilis po. Mas inuna nyo pang isinuko si dating Pangulong Duterte kesa sa matagal na sigurong nandyan sa listahan. At kung sinunod nyo lang po ang batas at tamang proseso, hindi nyo papayagan na ilipad lamang sa loob ng 14 na oras si Tatay Digong. Madam Chair, hindi natin maaaring ipagsawalang bahala ang seryosong implikasyon ng mga pangyayaring ito. Napaka-unhealthy po itong nangyari ngayon. Maaaring may mga batas at proseso ang ating bansa na nalabag at maaaring may mga karapatan ng isang mamamayang Pilipino ang naisang tabi. Kung ang dating Pangulo ng ating bansa ay maaaring tratuhin ng ganito, paano na lang kaya yung mga ordinaryong mamamayan? Ano ang garantiya na hindi ito mangyayari sa iba? Dapat bawat Pilipino, mataas o mababa ang katayuan sa buhay, dapat may gobyernong masasandalan na hindi siya pababayaan. Former President man o hindi, karapatan yan at lalo sa pagdating sa kanyang kalusugan, kaligtasan at buhay. Hindi rin ninyo isinaalang-alang na matanda na po si Tatay Digong, ang matatanda po, frail, fragile, sa totoo lang, harmless na po si Tatay Digong. For humanitarian consideration, kahit sinong lolo at lola natin, ginagalang at inaalagaan natin. Yun naman po ang ating kultura dito sa ating bansa. Ngayon, sa ibang bansa, mag-isa siya, napaka-stricto pa doon. Sino pong mag-aalaga kay Tatay Digong doon? Paano na lang kung may mangyari sa kanya doon? Marami naman siyang nagawang kabutihan sa ating bayan. Kung may pananagutan man dahil sa kanyang desisyon para sa kabutihan ng ating mga anak, dapat dito siya litisin sa ating bayan. At mas alam niyo po, ang Pilipino po ang dapat humusga sa kanya. Kung ano yung nagawa niya po sa nakaraang 6 na taon, kung nakakalakad ba yung mga ating anak na hindi nasasaktan at ligtas. Mga OFWs, kampante po sila na nakakalakad ang kanilang mga anak na hindi nasasaktan sa gabi at hindi nababastos. May peace of mind sila while working abroad. Sa huli, bagamat andun na si Tatay Digong ng buong tapang ay hinaharap ang kasong isinampa sa kanya tulad ng kanyang paulit-ulit na ipinangako, napakasakit po sa dibdib na malayo sa kanyang bayan. Ang importante ngayon po ay makauwi si Tatay Digong dito sa ating sariling bansa. Dito niya harapin kung anumang inaakusa sa kanya dahil ilang beses naman niyang sinabi, he takes full responsibility sa kung anumang pananagutan nung kanyang nakaraang termino. Madam Chair, sa mga kasamahan ko, kahit araw-araw pa tayong mag-hearing dito, I'm willing to participate. Pakiusap ko lang po sa inyo, sana matulungan, please, bring him home. Marami pong nangungulila, marami pong nasasaktan, mga kababayan ko. Noong nakaraang hearing, nasa Zoom lamang po ako dahil hindi ko kayang humarap sa ilang personnel na mataas ang respeto ko, nirespeto namin ni Tatay Digong at hindi naman po marunong rumispeto. Ngayon naman po, hindi lang po ako tinakbuhan noon. Ngayon naman, tinakbuhan na naman ng komite. Wala sila. Nabanggit po ni Senator Bato de la Rosa kanina, respeto naman natin, no, na nag-i-invoke po ang hila ng executive privilege, may mga excuses. Pero bakit ganon hindi pantay? Kung ang ordinaryong mga vlogger, police, local officials, pinapatawag kung ayaw pumunta, nako-contempt. Parang hindi naman po yata patas. As I have said before, March 11 is indeed the saddest day in our recent history. But the saddest part is, after 23 days, mukhang hindi pa rin natatapos ang lungkot na nararamdaman ng taong bayan na naulila dahil sa nawalan sila ng taong itinuring nating tatay. At hanggang ngayon, hindi pa rin nakakauwi si Tatay Digong, hindi pa rin ninyo nabibigyan ng klarong explanation.
At Senator Bongo, speaking at the Foreign Affairs Committee hearing ni Senator Amy Marcos. The second one. Don't go away. We're not done yet. Please stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on One News.
The Finance Department defends anew the government order for PhilHealth to transfer its unused funds. Here's the report.
The Supreme Court resumed hearing oral arguments on the PhilHealth fund transfer on Wednesday. Associate Justice Joseph Lopez narrated how measly the financial help he got when he went through treatment for cancer. He asked the state health insurer if the coverage allocated for members are enough.
You see, 2 years ago, I was stricken of a esophageal cancer, which went into my lungs, and I had to be confined for more than 2 months in one hospital in Metro Manila. And if I recall it correctly, my bill runs up to almost 7 million pesos. And would you know how much of it was covered by PhilHealth?
I am pretty sure, Your Honor, it is not more than 10%. But
definitely much lower than 10%. It's only 50,000. I don't know how to compute it, but I'm sure it's less than 2%.
But PhilHealth Senior Vice President Rene Limsiaco assured Lopez that the case rate of PhilHealth has already increased.
As the average value of case rate increases po, I think nasa 13 or 13,000 pesos or 14,000 pesos. Your Honor, PhilHealth's target for year 2025, Your Honor, is 18%, Your Honor, mako-cover po niya.
18%?
Yes.
Ideal already.
Yes, Your Honor. For year 2025, Your Honor.
Di ba kailangan mga 50%? Will not be able to reach that point?
Your Honor, as we progress the implementation, Your Honor, of course,
in years.
But mayroon ho National Health Financing Strategy that set up, Your Honor.
Petitioner Attorney Nery Colmenares insisted that unprogrammed appropriations are unconstitutional. Recall that the Finance Department has ordered PhilHealth to transfer its unused funds to be used for other expenses.
We believe as long as Section 1D is there, it may be PhilHealth now, we may win PhilHealth, it could be GSIS or SSS later. Ang mga kasamahan kong kongresista, Your Honor, wag naman yung kalusugan ng miyembro, wag naman yung pensyon ng miyembro. Kaya we are so concerned na baka pati yun ay gagalawin nila.
Finance Secretary Ralph Recto once again defended the government's use of PhilHealth's excess, unused and idle funds.
It is our duty to put every peso to work for the people. Hindi po pwede na kapag may nakitang malaking pondo na natutulog at hindi nagagamit para sa kapakanan ng taong bayan, hahayaan na lang. Sleeping funds serve no one. Every idle peso is a disservice to every Filipino. Hindi lamang po ang PhilHealth ang nag-iisang GOCC na aming inutusang magbalik ng sobrang pondo. Ayon sa 2024 GAA. Tinignan po ng DOF ang lahat ng mga natutulog na pera ng lahat ng GOCCs. And with our extensive review, we found out that PhilHealth has accumulated a very substantial excess, unused, and idle funds over the past few years. This is not beneficial for one reason. Every peso unused is a benefit denied to a Filipino citizen.
But this did not sit well with Colmenares, noting that the DOF's fiscal responsibility should not violate any law.
But fiscal responsibility, Your Honors, please, ends when it transgresses the Constitution. Ito ang question namin, Your Honor. Kung importante sa executive palang kunin ang pera ng GOCC, why did not President Marcos put Section 1D in the NEP? Kasi he was expecting 281 billion. Why did the House and the Senate did not put in Section 1D? Because it's only 281 billion. It was the BICAM, in all its wisdom, who increased it to 749 billion.
The Supreme Court aims to finish hearing oral arguments on PhilHealth fund transfer this week. For News 5, Camille Samonte, We Are One News.
Duterte supporters bombarded American author Nicholas Kaufman of messages mistaking him for the former president's counsel. In a Facebook post, the author said their names are not even spelled the same as his, Kaufman with only one N. He said the deluge of messages from supporters wishing him luck and God bless is, quote, insane. Kaufman, the author, is a horror, urban fantasy, and adventure fiction writer.
So double N to, si Kaufman na to.
No, si Kaufman na double N is the legal counsel.
But double N yung spelling parang sa post?
Mistaken, si Kaufman is only one N, yung sa, attorney.
All right. Some people rely on supplements in hopes of growing taller. However, experts are urging the public to exercise caution before purchasing these so-called height boosters online. Para bigyan ng mukha ang Balita Mobile Journal, Merymon Reyes.
Marami ng vitamins and supplements ang kumakalat ngayon, lalo online. Kasama na rito ang mga supplement na nagsasabing makakapagpatangkad daw ng tao. How true? Sa mga gustong tumangkad dyan, mag-search ka lang online, magsusulputan na ang mga binibentang food supplements na sinasabing nakakatulong daw yan para sa extra inches sa tangkad ng tao. Meron pa nga mga testimonyal ng mga umano'y nakagamit na effective umano ito. Pero ayon sa isang nutritionist, hindi raw basta-bastang tatangkad ang kahit na sino dahil lang sa supplements, lalo pa kung lagpas na sa age period of growth. Ang pagtangkad daw kasi nakabase sa genetics, hormonal factors, nutrition, at pati sa socio-economic aspects ng isang tao. Typically, mas matangkad din daw ang kalalakihan dahil sa kanilang mas mahabang growth period kumpara sa kababaihan.
I hate to break it to you, pero kung ano po yung na-achieve natin, na ibinigay ng may kapal, hanggang doon na lamang po talaga. Maaaring meron lang coincidence na gano'n na nangyari, pero that's very rare. Hindi lahat ng tao na halimbawa nag-close na yung plates, na yung growth plates, ay tatangkad pa. Kasi pagka nag-close na yung growth plates natin, wala na. Hanggang doon na lang talaga tayo.
Kaya ang Food and Drug Administration nakabantay din sa naglipa ng food supplements online. Ilan kasi rito ay hindi rehistrado at posibleng magdulot pa ng problema sa kalusugan. Payo na lang nila sa supplement manufacturers, magparehistro sa kanila para malaman kung angkop ba ang kanilang kiniklaim sa katotohanan.
It's not a scientific based claim or not a health claim. Pero we can always say that it can aid growth. So kung sinabi mong pampatangkad yan, medyo magkakaroon na kami ng doubt on our side whether tatangkad ba talaga yung tao sa pag-inom lang yun. Kasi if science-backed yung pampatangkad alone, matagal nang maraming matangkad na Pilipino.
Kaya naman paalala nila sa mga nais madagdagan ang tangkad kung iinom ng vitamins and supplements, kumonsulta muna sa mga doktor para hindi masayang ang inyong pera at panahon.
Ang food supplements po kasi or ang ating mga health supplements ay hindi talaga siya tinuturing ng mga gamot. So ibig sabihin, ini-aid lang po niya ang ating katawan. It only supplements the needs of our body. Ibig sabihin, meron na tayo dun sa katawan natin.
Ang mga supplements naman kasi ay maaaring makatulong, again, with proper diet and exercise for general purposes, for example, for general health purposes. Pero yun nga, don't get your hopes up. Hindi po pwedeng dito nyo lamang iasa na, tatangkad na ako. Wala pong milagro na, tatangkad na agad ako pagka nag-take ako na.
Sabi nga nila, maging kontento sa kung anong meron tayo. Pero kung nais na baguhin ang ilang aspeto ng sarili, do it with caution and guidance from professionals. Mobile journalist Mary Mon Reyes po, hatid ang mukha ng balita.
Now, the PBA added 10 more names to its list of greatest players in time for the league's 50th anniversary. The 10 are 7-time champion Nelson Asaytono, 8-time champ Jeffrey Carriazo, 8-time MVP Junmar Fajardo, 8-time champ Bong Hawkins, 13-time titleist Abe King, 4-time finals MVP Danny Sigel, 7-time champ Scotty Thompson, 1979 Rookie of the Year Arnie Tuadles, 6-time champion Manny Victorino, and last but not the least, 9-time champ Elpidio Yoyoy Villamin. They were chosen by a committee made up of esteemed former players like Ramon Fernandez, Atoy Co, and Alan Caidic, who are also part of the greatest players list.
Actually, yung unang list, dapat nandun niya si Villamin eh. Superman yun eh. Alam ko, tinatawag na si Superman yan eh. Tsaka,
so, I was checking all the...
I was also checking
tinitingnan ko kung dapat nandun si Alvin Patrimonio. Of course,
hindi, ano to, this is the revised
additional na lang, additional.
Pero yung sa list mo dito na notes mo ginagawa mo dito. Ayan. Yan ang notes ni Angel kanina. Ganda ng list niya. Uy, by the way, no, sad news pala, no, an icon and Hollywood legend yesterday passed away due to pneumonia, si Val Kilmer. Oo. For all those who don't know, si Val Kilmer played Batman once. Top Gun, he was also there. He was also in Tombstone, who played Doc Holliday.
Marami siyang movies, actually.
Tapos
Hollywood A-lister
yung what really cemented him as a great actor was yung movie niya sa The Doors, where he portrayed Jim Morrison. Grabe ang...
At least his final wish to be included in the second Top Gun was, di ba, granted. Kasi he was there kahit hindi siya masyadong nakapagsalita.
He wrote a book, he had a show, parang an autobiography on podcast type TV show, which cataloged his battle with cancer. And all throughout makikita mo yung love nilang dalawa ni Tom Cruise, who silently, parang Tom Cruise was silently supporting him in the best way he can. Parang best friends pala sila, but nobody broadcasted this friendship or even talked about this friendship na they were all together. And one of the first na nagsalita was si Tom Cruise, yung sadness niya.
And may lumabas yesterday, di ba, yung last video niya, apparently,
Oo,
before
yung Batman.
he died, nagsuot siya ng Batman na mask.
Oo. He was healthy naman pala, nag-remiss na yung cancer, just he caught pneumonia. Alam mo naman, if you have cancer and you're compromised by other sicknesses, malaki ang ano mo. Sino pa yung namatay ng pneumonia? Yung si Barbie Sue.
Oo, yan. Napag-usapan na natin.
Anyway, yan. Another sad day sa Hollywood history, but another icon leaves us. Yun. Anyway.
That we will remember for his good work. Kasi Batman. Oy, pero yung agree ba yung ating mga kapatid doon sa mga dinagdag pa na greatest player?
Ito dinagdag. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Excited ako doon sa mga PBA.
Excited ako dito eh.
Sino ba yan?
Anyway. Alright, before we let you go, I'd like to leave everyone with a quote. Sometimes you will never know the value of a moment until it becomes a memory.
That's right. That's why savor each moment.
With anyone in your life. And that wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
Join us again tomorrow. I'm Angelo Castro.
And I'm Angelo Castro III. We are One News.
All sides, all the time.